Hey everyone, great to see you back on the channel. Today I'm going to walk you through 4 different ways to build a small, temporary welding machine, enough to handle light metal work. These methods are simple, practical, and something you can try right at home without needing a lot of professional gear. I'll break down each approach, explain how it works, and point out the pros and cons so you can pick the method that suits your needs best. Alright, let's start with the first step, using this spark plug. First thing, I'm going to pull out the core inside, getting it ready for the next step, attaching the welding tip. We're going to get rid of this part since we won't be needing it anymore. Just a simple cleanup so we can focus on the important steps ahead. Here I've got a jar full of rivets, and now we're going to pick one to use as our welding tip. Moving on to the next step, I'll sharpen the tail end, getting it ready for the welding process. Alright, once it's sharpened, we'll fit the rivet cap into the spot where we pulled out the spark plug core earlier. Take a look, it looks pretty loose. To fix this issue, we're going to attach an extra wire to the rivet cap to make it more secure and ensure a stable current while welding. With this single wire, I'll connect one end to the welding tip first, leaving the other end for later connections. Even though it's already fairly secure, I still need to use a rivet gun to lock it in tightly. We'll wrap the wire neatly with tape so it doesn't hang loose, and at the same time prevent the connection from shorting or breaking. It's a small step, but really important to keep things safe and make the welding process go smoothly. Just wrapping it like this is safe enough. No need to overcomplicate, just make sure the wire isn't loose and the connection isn't exposed. Next step, with a piece of PVC pipe in hand, I'll adjust its size so it fits nicely as the handle. You can check the measurements on the screen, or simply adjust it to whatever feels right for you. I've already cut the PVC pipe to fit comfortably in my hand, and now I'll attach the spark plug assembly to the body of the pipe. Once that's in place, we'll move on to connecting the remaining wire, finishing up the handle and getting it ready for welding. But just to make it more secure, I'm going to add some hot glue so it won't slip out of the pipe. This way the handle stays firm and much safer to use. With this remaining wire, we'll attach a crocodile clip to it. That way, when you use it, you can easily clamp it onto the piece you're welding or onto the power source, making the setup quicker and more secure. Before connecting to the power source, we'll make a second tool, a wire with crocodile clips on both ends. This wire will be connected to the negative terminal of the power supply, ensuring the circuit is complete and the current flows steadily during welding. Here I've got a small capacity battery to serve as the power source for this setup. When it comes to the connection step, make sure to pay close attention so you don't mix things up. Did you see that spark just appear? That's the signal we've successfully built this device. It's a small test, but more than enough to prove everything is working exactly as it should. Make sure to check out this small test first before jumping into the real thing. It's the best way to confirm everything is stable, and it gives you the confidence to start actual welding. The weld has come out solid after that small test, which means we've succeeded with the first build. Pretty worth trying, right? It just goes to show that with a few simple steps, you can make yourself a really useful tool. Take a moment to appreciate the result before we move on to the second method. It's a good chance to enjoy what we've built so far and get ready for the next step. Sorry about that. I didn't startle you, did I? For the second method, I'll start by making the handle out of a wooden stick. Wood is strong, easy to work with, and it gives a natural, comfortable grip when you're using the tool. First, we'll drill a hole straight through the wooden handle. We're going to use the grinder's flange to secure the welding tip onto the wooden handle. It might sound a bit odd at first, but in just a moment you'll see exactly how well I put it to use to make the joint solid and clean. To make use of it the way I mentioned earlier, I'll mark 4 points on the cross-section of the wooden handle, aligned with the 4 holes on the grinder's flange. Then I'll drill a hole to drive in a screw, locking everything firmly in place so the welding tip won't shift during use. Next, I've got a motorcycle valve stem ready. First, we'll fit it onto the grinder's flange, and then secure the whole piece to the wooden handle with screws. This method makes the setup solid and also convenient for attaching the welding tip later on. Here we've got a simple AA battery. I'll strip off the casing and pull out the core inside. Using the battery core as a welding tip is totally doable, since it conducts electricity well and can be shaped to fit the job. After removing the battery core, I'll wipe it clean to get rid of any dirt, then pick one end to sharpen. After that, I'll fit it into the valve stem, making sure it has good electrical contact for a more stable weld. So now one end has been sharpened, and we're going to fit the flat end into the valve stem. But before that, we need to hook up the wire connection first. We'll connect one end of this wire to the flat side of the battery core, and right after that, fit the core into the valve stem. This way it saves time and makes sure the connection is solid for welding. One end of the wire is already connected, so now we'll move on to the other end and attach it to the alligator clip. This part is crucial since it'll allow us to hook up directly to the power source when the tool is in use. Right after this step, we'll skip making the second tool so we can save time and focus straight on the connection test. In this second method, I'll use the grinder's rechargeable battery instead of a car battery. It may sound tricky to picture, but once I show you, it'll make perfect sense. I've got two metal washers here. We'll use them as intermediaries, attaching them to the positive and negative slots, so later we can just clip the alligator clips from both tools and start using it right away. The second method worked out as well. Now, take a moment to look closely and see what makes it different from the first one. Honestly, I don't think there's much of a difference. If you've got all the materials on hand, feel free to try this out yourself. Otherwise, just skip ahead to method 3. Honestly, I don't think there's much of a difference. If you've got all the materials on hand, feel free to try this out yourself. Otherwise, just skip ahead to method 3. Moving on to the third welding method, I've got an old laptop charger that still works, along with a broken laptop plug. We'll start with this piece of gear that most people would throw away, and turn it into one of the safest little welding tools you could ever use. With the broken end of this laptop charger, I'll split the wire into 2 strands. This will let us extend the cable. Here I've got a red electrical wire. The color choice is not by accident. Red will represent the positive lead, making it easier to identify and preventing mistakes during the connection. We'll stick with the simplest connection method. Just attach one end of the red wire to any one of the charger's leads. On the other lead of the charger, I've added a white single-core wire. And keep in mind, once the connection is made, we must seal it with heat shrink tubing so no exposed parts are left that could cause a short or pose a risk during use. For the next step, I'll pick a spark plug from this tray to get ready for what comes next. After picking a spark plug that looks just right, I'll connect the red wire to the threaded end of the plug. This will serve as a direct contact point, making sure the current flows steadily during welding. To keep the wire from getting in the way, we'll tape it along the body of the spark plug. This keeps things neat and makes the setup more secure. In the next step, I'll skip making the welding tip from a battery core to save some time. Now we'll attach the flat end of the battery core directly to the spark plug connector. To avoid getting shocked, I'll use a large alligator clip to pick up and hold the entire spark plug assembly. This keeps things safe while also making it easier to handle. With the remaining end of the wire, I'll connect it to a smaller alligator clip. Alright, we're all set now. Next, we'll plug it into the power source and give it a test run to see how the welding tip performs. The current is a bit weak, which makes sense since the electricity passing through the charger is limited, producing relatively low power. But in terms of safety, I'd say this is the safest welding setup you could make at home. Take a moment to watch closely and assess it before we skip ahead to the fourth method. Observing carefully will show you the strengths and limitations of this approach compared to the previous ones. For small items like this razor blade, welding it is very straightforward and the weld holds well even with low current. The power may be low, but you can't deny how safe it is, right? Alright, let's move on to the final method together. In this tray full of old stuff, I'm hoping to find something suitable for the final method. Actually, I think this old broken heat gun will work. It could become a key component for the final method if we use it wisely. Honestly, there's no need to overcomplicate things. I just take the heat gun apart and keep the metal tube inside to use as the handle. It's simple and makes good use of the materials on hand. Alright, that's taken apart. Now we'll move on to the next step using a different item. Here I've got a simple spark plug. My goal is to attach it to the tip of the metal. What I just mentioned is only the plan for now. For now, we'll set it aside so I can introduce the next item. That's a simple single port coupling. We'll use it as an intermediate connector. One side of the coupling will be attached to the spark plug's threads, and the other side will connect to the welding tip. This gives us a solid, modular connection that's easy to swap or adjust when needed. In the connection step, I'll attach one end of the wire to the bolt on the coupling. This serves as a key contact point, ensuring the current flows steadily from the power source to the welding tip. Now we'll secure the spark plug assembly to the tip of the tube. To make this connection more secure, I'll use hot glue to fix the spark plug assembly in place. This ensures the joint is solid and safe during welding. For the remaining end of the wire, we'll connect it to an alligator clip. This allows the device to hook up to the power source safely and conveniently. As with the previous steps, I'll skip making the welding tip from a battery core. We'll move straight to the essential parts to save time and simplify the process. Don't worry too much about the size of the battery core. I chose this particular core simply because the couplings port is a bit large, making it fit the connection perfectly. I've streamlined this final method as much as possible to give you the easiest and most practical experience. If you have any feedback or questions, feel free to leave them below so we can discuss. The current is stable, similar to the first method using a small car battery. It's enough to weld small items safely. As for this welding device, I'd rate its power roughly equal to the first method. After testing it on a few small metal items, it worked very well. Before you try building one yourself, I invite you to check out the results to see what to expect, especially with slightly more challenging metal pieces. Let me do a quick test to see if the weld holds solid. This check is important to gauge the actual performance of the device. Alright, the weld is solid. If you found this video helpful or interesting, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below.